10. Deebo Samuel says goodbye to the San Francisco 49ers after reacting to reports that he was 20 pounds overweight last season. Could have went one way. He handled it a pretty good way. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about which players we thought stood out from the NFL Scouting Combine now that it has concluded, and potentially some fits and targets for the San Francisco 49ers. So we'll get into all of that good stuff right now. So you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in a chat. Smash that like button, and let's get into it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Oh boy, this is the first time that I have gone live since the Deebo Samuel trade news was announced. And we have had some things go down since then. So we'll talk about what was going on. We'll also talk about the NFL Scouting Combine. Maybe the next 49ers wide receiver is going to come through via the draft. So we'll talk about that. Some offensive linemen stood out. There's a couple guys that I wasn't even aware of that are now officially on my radar. We have some interesting things going on, and we're going to talk about it all. Oh boy. So let's start with the Deebo Samuel stuff, shall we? So I'm sure you guys have kind of heard. There was a report, I believe it was Tim Kawakami and Matt Barrows, basically reporting that Deebo Samuel was about 20 pounds overweight throughout the season. And we know Deebo was dealing with some things, right? He had pneumonia early on. That knocked him out for a while. He had another injury as well. And I don't know, maybe that contributed to Deebo Samuel's weight fluctuation. But I think we could all kind of sense that even though it was weird because he came into training camp actually in really good shape. At least I thought. And it was one of Deebo Samuel's better training camps that I have covered. And I think I've covered the last 4 training camps now. And I was really anticipating a big season for Deebo Samuel, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Actually, the guys who really stood out were guys like Jawan Jennings. Even later on down in the season, Ricky Pearsall started to shine. We obviously never really got to see Brandon Ayuk hit his stride because he got injured really before anything could come to fruition after he had missed all of training camp. So you would kind of thought that it was going to be Deebo's turn. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And kind of in reaction to the reports that Deebo Samuel came in substantially overweight, he responded to a tweet put out by Coach Yak saying, 225 pounds to be exact. Can't wait till the season starts. Fresh start, new bow. And I was thinking like, this could get messy real quick because maybe what Deebo Samuel is kind of interpreting from these reports is, maybe it's a little bit of a smear campaign. Maybe it's a little bit of, Mavs leaking that Luka Doncic, he drinks too much and he smokes too much hookah, kind of in that same situation after a player is traded and then kind of, things come out. So I was like, maybe that's where we're headed. And he actually kind of circled back. He responded, actually, great response, to be honest. Um, and if this was all Deebo, good on Deebo. He said, 49ers know where I stand with them. It's nothing but love. Love John and Kyle to death. No bad blood. No way, shape, or form. They know I'm more than appreciative of everything they've done for me as a player and a man. Nothing but love. And honestly, just right when you thought like it was like, oh, we could kind of be ugly on the way out, maybe he's perceiving them leaking something. He handled it really well. And I thought he did a really good job of kind of giving a nice little goodbye, letting everyone know good terms are still there between Kyle and John. As we know, Kyle and Deebo have a great relationship. And all the reports that we had heard, it was kind of the front office that I guess was souring on Deebo. But whatever it was, I think we all agree it was time for a change, time for a change of scenery. And so Deebo Samuel gets traded to the Washington Commanders for a 5th-round draft pick. Honestly, I've seen kind of the reaction after I went live, and we kind of were just kind of talking about everything and reacting to everything as it went down. Some people don't think that getting a 5th-round draft pick for Deebo Samuel was a good return, whereas I'm kind of on the opposite side. I actually think that getting a 5th-round draft pick for Deebo was a good draft pick in return, considering the fact that Washington took on his entire contract and gave us a 5th-round draft pick. If you guys notice, there's a difference between trading a player on his rookie deal versus trading a veteran who has a big time contract. It is completely different. And I use the Brian Burns kind of trade situation as I think the perfect example of this, because there was in time where the Rams offered the Panthers 2 first-round draft picks for Brian Burns when Brian Burns was on his rookie deal. Well, the Panthers declined it. They opted not to take that, but they decided that it was either time to trade Brian Burns or pay him. He was going to become a unrestricted free agent, or they had to pay him. Like that was the only option. And the team that was going to trade for him also needed to pay him. So as a result of that, because the team that was trading for Brian Burns had to pay him, Brian Burns only went for a 2nd and a 5th. That's it. A 2nd and a 5th for a player in the prime of his career. But the reason why the compensation was as such was because the New York Giants, who were trading for him, had to give him a contract. Well, it's not apples to apples comparison, but thank you, Detail. As you can see, I am distracted. There we go. I'm accepting without even watch. Oh, you sent that right now. Make sure you go follow Niners Detail. New heat just dropped. And I don't even need to watch it. I know my boy cooked on this one. So I'm gonna watch this one when it's all said and done. Make sure you go watch it too. Niner Detail. Pouring one out for the homie. All that good stuff. But the point being is, when you associate the contract involved with a trade, it impacts the compensation. So maybe Deebo Samuel, if you removed the contract and it was just player for pick, you probably get a little bit better of a pick. But because the contract was involved, because Washington takes on, I think it's around $17.5 million in his contract, that's why the compensation matches. So for me, I was of the mindset that, man, we're probably going to designate Deebo Samuel as a post-June 1st release, which means we're going to get nothing for him. And we're still going to take on that $31 million dead cap hit. The only difference is it's spread out over 2 years versus taking it on one season. So at least the San Francisco 49ers get the fifth, and they will take on the $31 million dead cap hit in 2025, but they at least get a pick. And hey, the San Francisco 49ers, we talked about this when the trade was made. They have been very successful. I mean, again, just because you have been successful in the past doesn't mean it's a guarantee that you're going to be successful in the future in the same way. But the 49ers have hit on George Kittle in the 5th round, Talanoa Hufanga, Diamador Lenore, Drake Greenlaw was a 5th round draft pick. So the 49ers have had success in that particular round. So, okay. All right. I've seen this go around, and I'll do it. Gav says, can we make a poll to find out if people want to keep the boombox walkout? I'm kind of curious about that too. So I will make a poll on YouTube, and I'm going to see what the people, this one. So we're going to make the poll. Should 49ers keep boom box walkout? It is so. What's going to be crazy that maybe we haven't really thought about is I won't be surprised if Deebo Samuel first game with the Washington Commanders, he's walking out there with the boombox, just in a different shade of burgundy and gold. So that's going to be a weird sight to see if Deebo Samuel brings that with him to the Commanders. But the people want to know, should the 49ers keep the walkout? Detail says, gotta leave it with Deebo. I mean, he's kind of I feel like he's the originator of it. Obviously, we still have Trent. So Trent could keep it alive. I don't know. I don't know if they retire it. I don't know if they retire it yet. What does the poll say? What does our poll say? Should we keep the boombox walkout? 70%, 71% so far say yes. So it just jumped up to 72. 73% say yes. So majority right now is saying keep the bump box walkout. I would imagine they will. Raphael says, bro, what's your link to all your 49er hats? This one is a residency hat. So if you want to go to residency.com, use the promo code SBSF9ers. You can get a little bit of a discount on your residency hat as well. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I would imagine. I don't know. Honestly, I can't determine if they're going to keep it or not, because it is, I think of them playing Kodak Black, Super Gremlin, Walking Out. I mean, such an iconic song associated with that 2019 season. So we'll see. I don't know. I can't spin it one way or the other. But we'll see what the 49ers ultimately do if Trent keeps it alive. Would I like to keep it? I'm indifferent on it. I wouldn't mind it if it stays, and I wouldn't be upset if it goes. I'm kind of indifferent on it. If Trent keeps it alive and we still get the boys hyped off of it, and 49ers are winning games, and then we're good. Then we're good. It's hard. I noticed it was kind of hard doing the intro when we were losing games. I was like, that was the first time since 2019 where the 49ers didn't have a winning season. And so it was like the first time where it was like, oh, it's a different feel to it. Didn't have the same energy, didn't have the same vibe. But to me, if they're as long as they're winning and they're still getting after it, I'm fine if they keep it. So we'll see what happens. Who owns the boombox? That would probably be the equipment managers, or yeah, I think it's the equipment managers who be controlling the bump box. But we'll see. We'll see what it goes. Let me see what the voting comes down to before we move on. Still at 73% say the 49ers should keep the boombox walkout. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But hey, I'm looking forward for 49ers football to get back. Also looks like Diamador Lenore is ready for 49ers football to get back. He says, I miss football. Let's get active. He also said all the money in the world can't change that love for the game. Demo is on a legendary run. I was talking to someone on Radio Row who is in Demo's circle, and we're just talking about. I'm like, dude, this guy gets it. This guy understands what buttons to push with this fan base. Everything he says, everyone's like, yep, this is our guy. and even sometimes when maybe he says some things when maybe some fans don't agree with it, he ends up backing it up. So I think that's the biggest thing, right? And I think when you kind of look back at Deebo talked a lot of mess about the Philadelphia Eagles, but man, he walked into Philly and he scored 3 touchdowns, wearing all black in the pregame. You're like, all right, we'll take it. We'll take it all day, any day. Anytime you can back up the talk. Say what you got to say. As long as you can back it up. So, I think Demo is definitely on the rise as one of the top 49ers, I guess, fan favorites right now. He is definitely on his way to the top. So, but let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about NFL Combine. I'm down to talk free agency as well, because with the Deebo Samuel trade, it is clear that there will be changes coming for the San Francisco 49ers. And it's going to be interesting to see. Should we go after Darius Slay? Darius Slay says he wants 1 more year, and he was talking about going back to the Detroit Lions. As much as I like Slay, I don't know if I want to go Slay. I think I want to go younger. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think the 49ers have an opportunity to either add in the draft, which I do think they should, potentially go get another cornerback in the draft. Just keep getting younger, stay cost controlled. And that's really, and you saw what Renardo Green was able to do. And hopefully you can hit on that type of success again. So I do think they will go into free agency to get a veteran. I think they'll do what they've been doing. 1-year contract for Isaiah Oliver, 1-year contract for Isaac Yiadom. I don't mind the process. They just need a hit on the player. Both of those free agents just have not been good, and they need to. I don't mind the process that they're using, but when you're going to bring in that veteran on that 1-year deal to be that kind of cornerback 3, make sure you get a good one. I don't mind that, and go draft. Go draft a cornerback. There are some good cornerbacks coming out. So that would be my preference because that gives you a bit of an ability to insulate that spot. You get the 1-year veteran, but you also draft a guy. So kind of like what we saw last year. Isaac Yadam, it didn't work out. So Renardo Green took over. And that worked. So if they do that again, get a 1-year guy, veteran, and then go and get a rookie. If the veteran doesn't work out, the rookie takes over. So I like the process. I just haven't liked the results so far. Drew Dahlman to the 49ers. Report came out today that the Atlanta Falcons are preparing for Drew Dahlman to leave in free agency. Drew Dahlman is the number 1 center who will be available in free agency. And I know 49er fans want him. So it'll be very interesting to see if the 49ers spend on Drew Dahlman. Obviously, his dad played for the San Francisco 49ers. He went to Stanford. He was a former 4th-round draft pick. And he fits the scheme. He fits what they're looking for. He is a perfect outside zone center, which means he's a little bit low. It means he can get to second level very well. It means he's good at reach blocking. Means he's quick. So I think the 49ers, they need a little bit of that. But they also need, I think, a little bit more power at center as well. So I'm curious. I'm curious if they go Drew Dahlman. I think it makes sense to us from a scheme fit. It makes sense to me from a scheme fit. But does it make sense for $20 million per year? Will the 49ers spend that type of money on him? Or do they kick Ben Barch into center, who I think is a little bit more stout in the run game? And do they draft Armand Membo, a Will Campbell, and then put him at left guard, and then you hold them there at left guard until Trent retires, or if Colton McKivitz leaves, you can then kick them to the tackle spots or just keep them at guard. And then potentially go Zakel. So basically what I think it would look like is it would almost be like a Zakel Barch competition at center. And then, I guess you throw Brendel into that mix because I think he would still be on the roster. And then you potentially draft an offensive lineman if one of them fall out, because with everything that we saw from the NFL Combine, it looks like there could be a chance that maybe one of those top offensive linemen are available at 11. It's hard because Armand Membo, I think he's a top 10 lock now. And Will Campbell, up until this point, has been a top 10 lock as well. You know, Mason Graham has been a top 10 lock. Cam Ward, top 10 lock. Who else? I'm trying to think. Off the top of my head. Shador, I don't know. I think Shador is a question mark in the top 10. I could see a Geno Smith-esque type fall. I don't know if he would fall to the second round. Travis Hunter, thank you very much. That was the one I was looking for. I don't know if Shador would fall to the extent of Geno Smith, but I could see if Shador slides out of the top 10, I don't know. It would be fascinating. It would be fascinating to see where he ultimately goes. So there's a lot of prospects who are kind of cramping their way into that top 10, which again is a good thing for the 49ers because the more top 10 caliber players there are, especially if there are more beyond 10, means they're shoving good talent down to the 49ers at 11. If the 49ers want to trade up 1, 2, 3 spots where they could go and target and get their guy who wouldn't cost as much. It still would be pricey, but it wouldn't cost as much as, like, say, going from 12 to 3, as you guys all know. I don't know if they would make that move. I would say if the 49ers are in the business of trading, they'll probably be a trade back candidate more than anything else. But the bottom line with what I'm seeing is the 49ers have the potential to have a lot of options available at pick 11. And no better, I mean, honestly, let's say Shador is there at 11. Let's just say he slides. Maybe that becomes the prime spot for the 49ers to drop back. Someone moves up to try to get the quarterback, and they just take on a bunch of draft capital in the top 100, and they drop back 5, 10, 15 spots and stack a couple top 100 picks. This is a great draft to have multiple top 100 picks because I don't think it's necessarily top heavy, but I think it's a pretty solid, just like it's a deeper draft than it is a top heavy draft. So honestly, would not be super upset if that was the case. So we'll see. I got to move faster though on some of these questions. And I see a super chat. I'll get to that super chat in a second. Any updates on CMC? Last we heard is he's expected to be healthy right about now. Mooney Ward, I think we are pretty much fully expecting him to leave in free agency. I fear that Greenlaw will be following Deebo to Washington. Oh, that's actually a phenomenal point, Corey. So what I've been hearing is based on, I'll just say it like this. What I've been hearing is I don't expect Greenlaw to return. I've already come to terms with that. So I expect Greenlaw to leave in free agency just based on the reasons why. And the reasons why have nothing to do with money. So I do expect Greenlaw moves on. So I love Greenlaw. I wish he would stay. But I do expect him to move on. Should we go after Michael Mayer? I would say yes. I would absolutely make that call and see what it would cost to get him. Latham Ransom at the combine. I saw a little bit of him, and he's been a guy that I definitely have been kind of eyeing. I haven't done the tape work yet on him, but he gives me good vibes. Gives me good vibes. And typically I have this weird vibe thing where if I kind of have a vibe of a guy before I head into the tape, sometimes, like a lot of the time, that vibe matches what the tape shows. So we'll see. But I haven't done the work on him yet. Would I be interested in Devontae Adams? Only if he's released. That's it. What is truly our biggest need? Defensive tackle. Let's see. Let me get through some of these. Will the 49ers pick Nick Iman Worry? He made a lot of money. So it'll be fascinating to see if that happens. Could happen. We'll see. Trayvon Walker from the Jags. What's my opinion? I don't have a super strong opinion of him. I haven't watched much of him since he's been with the Jags. I know he tested through the roof at the NFL Combine. One of the reasons why he went 1 overall, not Aiden Hutchinson. I know he's kind of come on as of late, but I will have to be honest with you. I have not been paying the most close attention to him since he's been on the Jags. I know he struggled at the gate, but he's kind of been picking it up as it's gone forward. But I don't know. I don't know if the Jags would be open to that. I love Gray Zabel. I actually, I was expecting Gray Zabel to perform a little bit better in the field drills. He was okay. He was okay. I actually expected more from Zabel. But I've seen enough of him actually on a football field playing football that I don't have a problem with what I saw at the NFL Combine in underwear and tank tops. So from what I've seen from Gray Zabel at the Senior Bowl, I mean, I saw enough of him actually play football um, that I'm not concerned about him. He's still someone that I really want the 49ers to potentially get. Campbell's not too small. People are going to talk about his arm length, which is we have this conversation every single year on that topic. I don't care about your arm length because if I can't see it on tape, if it doesn't show up on tape, if I can't be like, if there's not a situation where I'm like, oh yeah, that arm length, that arm length, those short arms really showing up on, I don't care. I do not care. What I care about are your feet, your hips, your base, your power, your mentality. I rank all of those things higher in importance than arm length. Of course, if you can have these long Spider-Man arms, that's great. If you're out here like Mrs. Incredible and you got these crazy super stretchy arms, like fantastic. But to me, that's not the determining factor of if you will be a successful tackle in the NFL. Rashawn Slater, I believe, had under 33-inch arms. He's an all-pro. So I really don't care about your short arms if it's not a problem. People make it a problem every single year. They make it a problem every single year. And my response to that is show me on tape where the small arms are a problem. And I have yet to find someone to actually show me a clip where they're like, look at his short arms show up on tape. And I'm like, oh, you're right. Short arms. I've been I've been watching O-line prospects for a really long time. I do think it is something that you have to kind of consider, but I don't carry the same weight the way it's discussed, because to me, that is a crutch for people who don't really know how to evaluate offensive line play. Because again, to me, your success as a tackle isn't actually driven by your arms. It's driven by your feet. It's driven by your base. It's driven by how athletic you are. That's my thoughts on that. So I'm sure if you've been on this channel before, you've heard me say something very similar. So I'm really not too worried about the arms. Do you think Jackson Slater is a project or could start at center early? I love Jackson Slater. He finished in top 5 in athletic scoring. He finished like he had a phenomenal combine. Like out of all the prospects, according to Next Gen Stats that tested, Jackson Slater finished top 5 in his athletic scoring. Like that's crazy, right? Like that's nuts. I love Jackson Slater. Um, he was a guy that was on my radar heading into the Senior Bowl. So he was someone that I wanted to see how he would perform. And every step of the way, he checked every box from what I was looking for from him. And I don't know if he checks like the measurable boxes in regards to like height and size, but he's a good player. Like if you look at this right here from the NFL Combine, you can see top athleticism scores, tape Ratledge, the glorious mullet, Jared Wilson, Jared Wilson is someone I've watched on tape, and I have been before the combine, I have mocked him to the 49ers a couple times, but his testing was insane. So Jared Wilson like bumped his stock up probably like 2 rounds with his testing. But look at the bottom right there, Jackson Slater, number 5 with a 94 top athleticism score according to Next Gen Stats. So, yeah, I'm all in. I'm all in on Jackson Slater, baby. If you can get him in the 3rd, 4th round, sign me up. My comp for him is Mason McCormick, who was drafted by the Steelers last year. I believe he even started for the Steelers last year. Him, McCormick, and Frazier, I believe, were the 2 rookie starting offensive linemen. Fautanu got injured, unfortunately, who was my number 1 draft crush last year. But McCormick was also a draft crush of mine. I believe he started at guard. And so Mason McCormick reminds me of Jackson Slater, both FCS guys. They're very similar to me. So I do think Jackson Slater could absolutely push to be a starter year 1. I feel like we neglect defensive tackle until round 3 and 4. Get guys like CJ West and Aeneas Peebles. Peebles is one of my favorite defensive tackle prospects in this class, but the problem is I have a lot of favorite defensive tackle prospects in this class. He's been one of my favorite guys to watch on film. He is not big. He's like 6 foot, maybe 6'1". I don't even know if he's 300 pounds, but he is so fast. His first step get off. I mean, I've mentioned this before so many times. As a former center and a former guard, there's nothing more challenging to deal with than first step get off from a defensive tackle. And if they have the power and the technique behind it, it is a freaking nightmare to deal with. Because if you're getting off your first step and that defensive tackle is already got his hands in your chest before you can even like get into your like first step, that is so challenging to deal with. It's one of the reasons why I was super, super high on Aaron Donald coming out when Aaron Donald was getting crushed for his size. Crushed, like the same thing you hear like about like Will Campbell's arm length. They're saying the same thing about Aaron Donald. Oh, he's too small. He's too short. they're crazy if they're going to take Aaron Donald in the first round. I was like, you guys are crazy, man. Like, just because you're small on the interior defensive line, that does not mean that automatically means you can't hold your ground. And if anything, it almost presents more of a challenge, especially for bigger offensive linemen, because the target is smaller and the target is faster and quicker. And it presents a big challenge. So Aeneas Peebles is a guy that I like, but there's so many defensive tackles in this class that the 49ers are they're gonna get their hands on someone. It's just a matter of who. Michael says Mason Graham is dropping after the combine, and so is Abdul Carter because of injury, is what I read. The injury could definitely cause teams to pivot. I think there was a chance that Abdul would have been number 1 overall, but I do think that the injury could be enough to kind of pause on that, and maybe they punt, and maybe that pushes Cam Ward back into the number 1 slot, and then maybe the Titans trade out. That could be a potential situation right there. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Hey man, I've said it all along. Like, Jack Betch isn't a guy who's going to wow you with his physical tools or anything like that. He's just pure heart, pure football, great hands, catches everything. There's a reason why I keep saying, like, I'm not comping Jack Betch to Anquan Bolden, but he reminds me of Anquan Bolden. I've said it, like I told you guys, like I covered TCU versus Stanford. I believe it was the first game of both their seasons. So I was on the sideline for that game. Guess who's also a wide receiver? 2 wide receivers in that game. Savion Williams and is Alec Arimore? I don't know how to say his name. I butcher it every time. But those are the 2 like big wide receiver prospects on my radar heading into that game. Stanford kid, TCU, Savion Williams. Guess who was the best wide receiver on the field? Neither of the 2 highly touted prospects. It was Jack Betch. And just because he's a baller, he makes plays. And I have a hard time with Savion right now just because my first impression of Savion was that game, and he was awful in that game. He had so many terrible drops. Like, I'm talking about like what is this guy's selling right now? He's selling this game. He's about to give the game to Stanford. Stanford probably shouldn't have been in that game. I'm like, what is this guy doing? He's dropping everything. So my first impression of Savion isn't ideal. Now, he looks the part. Oh boy, does he look the part. He looks like a legit number 1. He's big, he's fast. But I know it's one game and players have bad games, and I haven't gone back into his tape. But it just left such a bad taste in my mouth of just how bad he was that game. Like, one of my biggest takeaways was, wow, Savion Williams is not good. And then Jack Betch is really good. That was my takeaway. And I really I didn't know who Jack was heading into that. I low-key thought he was a tight end, which tells you about his measurables. in the sense of speed. Um, but he caught everything. He caught everything. I love Jack. Jack's a guy I'm going to bet on. I'm going to bet on Jack for sure. I've already taken it. I took him in the second round mock draft 2.0. People were telling me that was too high. That's fine. I'm betting on Jack for sure. He's not going to be a guy who wows you with testing or anything like that. He's just a ball player and he's got pure heart. Like he's one of those guys that is going to put everything he has into being the best football player he can. And watching him handle that tragedy of losing his brother and then having the week that he had at the Senior Bowl, it just solidified it like even further for me. I'm like, yeah, this is a guy you want on your team. This is a guy you want in your locker room. This is a glue guy. Like he is a potential future captain. Like he's someone that you want. Marcus says, be honest. Is this offseason considered another drama offseason? I would say that it's status quo. And depending on what you consider status quo to be, that I guess that's a determination for you because, the 49ers seem to have some kind of drama every offseason. So I don't think it's much different. I really don't. I'm so used to this cadence of the offseason with crazy things going on that it's almost it's normal to me now. Like it's normal to me. So I'm along for the ride. We'll see what happens and we'll talk about it and we'll analyze it and give feedback and reactions to it, but it is what it is. Do I think it will affect the upcoming season? I mean, of course it will affect the upcoming season. There's going to be so many changes to this roster that it might not affect that many because there's going to be so many new pieces. We have 11 draft picks. Who knows how many players are going to come through via free agency, potentially another 10 more via free agency. So there's going to be a solid chunk of this roster that have no idea the 49ers drama heading in. Like, so I'm less concerned about that. And I do believe that these guys are being a season removed from a Super Bowl loss. I believe the Super Bowl loss was the biggest issue from contributing to the vibes last year. It was the contract drama that was the cherry on top that just really didn't allow anyone to move beyond, because it just all rolled together. So I'm not considering this offseason drama. I'm considering there's a lot of changes coming. There's a lot of changes coming. And this defense, this offense could look considerably different. So I'm not even calling it drama anymore. I'm just saying, listen, guys, we are in a new era. And, this is something that I've been anticipating for a while. I remember going on 95.7 The Game morning show with Bonte and Shasky. I think it was right before we traded for Christian McCaffrey. And and they were talking about window. Like how long do you think the 49ers window is open? And I'm like, I think it's 2 to 3 years. And then there's going to be significant changes. Well, when did we trade for Christian McCaffrey? 2022 season. We're heading into 2025. Well, there we are. We are in the season of change. So it depends on how you interpret the change. I'm nervous on one hand, but I'm also welcoming on the other. I Since I've been kind of covering this team since I started in 2017, I've obviously seen a bunch of iterations of this roster under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, but this will be the biggest upheaval. This will be the biggest kind of reset. I've been calling it a mini rebuild because I do think that's what it is. It's a mini rebuild. They have core pieces in place, but they're going to have to make changes. And so I can't speak to what all those changes will be, but I can project that there will be a good amount. And so I think if you wrap your mindset around the fact that changes can be good, like with Deebo. Deebo, like it was crazy just going back and like going through my camera roll and just looking at everything that Deebo has contributed to since 2019. Like Deebo has been such a focal point of this team. He's contributed so much. He's been a part of so many big moments. Um, I have so much content on Deebo Samuel. It is literally insane. Just in my camera roll. But at the end of the day, it was time. It was time for a change. It was time for a change of scenery. We all know why it was a time of change. A time was needed for a change of scenery. Like we all knew it was at that point. And so, although I think it was a good move to trade Deebo, and I think we got a decent compensation in return for him. Man, he was still great for us. He was still a part of a big part of this team for a long time. But it depends on how you interpret that. And so my interpretation was it was time for a change. And with the whole roster right now, there are elements where it's time for a change. Now, I think Kittle needs to stick around. I think he needs a contract extension. I would love for Dre Greenlaw to stick around, but I don't anticipate he will. I personally, I'm a Talanoa Hufanga guy, so I like Talanoa Hufanga. I would like for Talanoa Hufanga to stay here. I don't know if that's going to happen. So Charvarius Ward, I also like Charvarius Ward. I don't think he stays either. So Javon Hargrave is going to be a post June 1st release. So changes are coming. It's just how do you internalize that? And like how do you quantify it? What is your perception of it? And for me, understanding that this is just the reality of the time that we're in, that change can be good, right? You hear the slogan all the time, adapt or die. And the 49ers have to adapt their roster. They have to get younger, they have to get cheaper. And it is what it is. Sometimes it's going to hurt. Sometimes it means we're going to lose players that we really like. But you never know who's coming behind them. You never know who's next up. And that guy who's next up could become your favorite player, could become even better than the guy that you thought you were losing. So that's the way that I'm trying to look at it. And because me personally, I'm such a big, I'm so into roster building and roster construction and the draft and free agency. This is fun. We haven't had an opportunity to really mess around and talk about, oh, these free agents or these draft picks or trade this or this. Like, this is the first time since 2021 offseason that we can actually have some real like thought exercises on how to build out this roster and retool it or rebuild it. And as we've talked about, it starts in the trenches. They got to get the O line right. They got to get their D line right. It has to be the number one priority. They have to figure it out. They have to get 2 interior defensive tackles that aren't currently on this roster. I did like the idea that they were talking about Jonathan Allen. Now, Jonathan Allen won't be, I don't think Jonathan Allen is who he was 2 years ago, but Jonathan Allen is still a starting defensive tackle in this league. And if they release him, God, come on over, dude. Come on over to the 49ers. We need someone like Jonathan Allen. He would be like, he was discussed in the Deebo Samuel trade. I think the hangup came with the trade compensation. But man, if you can get, I know he's older and he doesn't necessarily fit the younger mold that we're looking for, but it allows you to get someone who you can for sure know is a NFL player, and then also draft defensive tackles that you can have the confidence knowing that we don't have to start them right away. We can get them in at their own pace. We can develop them at their own pace. I think if there's anything that we've seen from the San Francisco 49ers is that's what they prefer. They prefer to draft a guy a year before he needs to play. Unfortunately, with the defensive line, they did not do that last year. They did not really address D-line to be prepared for it this year. So I think they're going to have to look at free agency again, and they're definitely going to have to draft. So we'll see how that goes. But defensive tackle right now is got to be my number one. Oh, don't get me started on Crosby. What's new with Crosby coming to the Niners? I mean, nothing right now, but has he been signed to a contract extension yet? No. He hasn't. So until Crosby signs a extension with the Raiders, I'm calling. Just like I would have been annoying about Brian Burns. Is Brian available? How much does Brian cost? Can we get Brian? How much is Burns? I'm doing the same thing with Crosby now. It's just switched. They didn't go out and get me Brian Burns. Okay, Brian Burns, he's off the market. He's paid. He's accounted for. He's on the Giants. That ship has sailed. Maxx Crosby, though. Hey, how's it going, buddy? How much? Is he available? What would it take? Let me get Crosby. Are you going to sign him? I would literally just be bugging Tom Brady. Like, come on, man. Tom, you guys haven't won anything with Maxx. You don't have a quarterback. Let us give you some draft picks, man. Let us take Crosby off your hands. We'll pay him. We'll give him the extension. Let us give you some draft picks. Leonard Floyd, do you need an edge? We'll give you Leonard Floyd and some draft picks. Leonard Floyd 8 sacks last year. Not bad. Hey, come on. I would they would block my number after a while. They would stop picking up my phone call. They'd be like, God, Brad's calling again. he's going to ask us about Maxx Crosby again. That's where I'm at. So until Maxx Crosby is signed to an extension, he is available in my eyes. That's how I view it. I've learned enough about I've learned enough how contract negotiations go that until said player is signed, there's a potential they're available. You know, it's why I'm nervous about some current players on the San Francisco 49ers. And but it's the same logical thought process that I have for other players. So if you're not signed on that dotted line, that means I can pick up the phone and I can gauge value and gauge, hey, is this a thing? Can we do this? Can we make this work? Oh, I'm calling. I'm annoying the crap out of the Raiders. Oh, they would hate me. They would hate me. Let me get through a couple more questions. Great questions, by the way, today. Phenomenal questions. We've got a little bit of everything: free agency, trade, combine, draft. We currently have 11. We're slated to have 11 picks. They still haven't announced the compensatory picks, but we're projected to get 4. T. Higgins. Honestly, I love T. Higgins. I'm out on T. Higgins because I'm not trading for T. I'm not trading for him and then paying him. So, yeah, like I love T. Like T, I've talked about. He's one of my favorite wide receivers. Like I loved him coming out of Clemson. He's a my guy. But yeah, I'm not trading for him. They just franchise tagged him again because they want to get something for him. I'm not trading for him, and then I am not paying him $30 million per year. It's just not gonna happen. But I do love him though. I do. Thoughts on Draft Crush, David Walker. I love David Walker. He's one of my guys. His D-line coach, who's now the defensive line coach for Sac State, hit me up before the Senior Bowl. He's like, watch out for David Walker. I'm like, I have no idea who David Walker is. Central Arkansas. I was like, oh, okay. No clue who this guy is. Instantly stood out. He's like 6 foot, 6'1", but he's really freaking good. I'm a big David Walker guy. Dylan Sampson, I haven't watched his tape, but he does have really good movement skills. Demetrius Knight, he's a really good downhill linebacker. From what I remember watching at the Senior Bowl, it was the coverage that he struggled with. Like really good downhill. He's shooting gaps, he's stopping the run, but he did struggle a little bit in coverage. Kobe King out of Penn State, he was one of the first linebackers I watched when I was doing some mock draft prep work. He's a guy that I like. I like him as like a mid-round linebacker. And then Jordan Phillips was in mock draft 1.0. He too is also a guy that I like. I'm really big on Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips just feels like a 49er. Like he feels like he would be a phenomenal addition to the 49ers up front. To me, he looks like a 3-down guy. Like he's definitely going to hold up in the run game, but he does look like he could also present a impact as a pass rusher as well. Sam Darnold to the Raiders. I mean, makes sense. Didn't Pete Carroll coached Sam Darnold at USC if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was no. Pete Carroll was in the league at that point. So no, I'm wrong on that. Yeah. Oh, it was close. No. He was definitely in the league at that point. What do I think about everyone who thinks the 49ers are in a rebuild? I think we're in a rebuild. I'm calling it a mini rebuild. I don't think it's a full blown. Now, I think it's still TBD because I'm not saying that anything is going to happen with Brock, but I'm also not just like blindly of the belief that it's a 100% guarantee that we're paying Brock. I really do think there is a range of outcome that exists where something happens there. I don't think it's a large range of out. Like it's when I'm talking range of outcome, I'm like maybe 0.5%, but the 0.5%, that's enough. It's still enough. Like until Brock gets signed, I'm kind of just like, we'll see. We'll see. Because I just don't know. I don't have any, like information on this one, at least yet. So I don't know what the starting prices are. I don't know how big the gap is. I've seen the 49ers and players haggle over 1 million. I've seen the 49ers and players haggle over 3 million. If this is like a $10 million gap, if we're just talking APY, I don't know. I don't know how that works. So I know that the 49ers, so this is my thought process on how negotiations work. Part of the negotiation is gauging value from other teams. What would this team pay for this player? What would they trade for this player? What would that compensation look like? Like it feels like it's all part of the process of determining value. Like, what do we pay this guy? What do other people think of him? What would other people pay for him? What would other people spend to trade for him? So I wouldn't be shocked if the 49ers were trying to figure that out. What would you guys trade for Brock if we made him available? Not saying he is available. I'm saying like, hey, you guys need a quarterback. We got a quarterback. We're planning on paying him, but everyone's got a price. So what would you pay for him? Well, what would it take? And sometimes that's how those conversations start. And then sometimes those, you get like, oh, you would pay that for him? Maybe it makes sense. So, like I said, I will feel much better about the Brock Purdy thing when it's done. I'll feel much better about the George Kittle thing when it's done. I'll feel much better. Well, yeah, I think that's about it. I think those are the two big ones. So I don't know. Again, maybe that's the years of covering the 49ers throughout the offseason that just, keep me on my toes. But it's where I'm at. I do think they're in a mini rebuild for sure. I mean, they have holes at nearly every level of the roster. Need a starting safety, need a starting linebacker, need a starting cornerback, need two starting defensive tackles, need an edge of the future, need two starting offensive linemen, need tackles of the future, need wide receivers, need running backs, potentially fullbacks, need tight end. They have needs at every level of the roster, including quarterback, because the quarterback hasn't been paid. So, because the quarterback hasn't been paid, that to me would trigger a rebuild. Is that, let's say, a team who's picking number 1 overall or number 2 overall, they're like, hey, well, we'll trade this pick for Brock. Would the 49ers do that? I'm just spitballing. I'm not saying nothing. I'm just spitballing. Like, you guys know I'm a range of outcomes person. So I think of every range of outcome. And one of the ranges of outcomes is, well, what if someone offers the 49ers top 10 pick for Brock when he was Mr. Irrelevant? And you're like, oh, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that I now have to process and think about. And how would the 49ers think about that? Would they consider that? It would they consider it if they're not in the same place in regards to like getting a deal done? Like, I don't know. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that it's even a discussion. But when you have an ADHD brain, that's typically what you do. You run down all the ranges of outcome. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Again, I'm not saying anything is going to happen. I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe I should not think out loud in the future. I'm scaring people. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking out loud. Just thinking out loud. That's all. Thoughts on the Owens news? I actually, right after I get off this live, I'm gonna drop my Tariq Owens interview that we did at the Super Bowl. We spoke for like 15 minutes. Dude is super chill. He is so chill. And we just kind of talked about his season. We talked about like what it's like being a practice squad player. And just kind of like that whole process. We talked about his training camp that he had, kind of going through the injury, and then like how he continued to improve his game. One of the interesting things that I thought he said is like, I would have assumed that the speed of the game would have, been one of the learning curves. But he's like, no, the speed of the game actually didn't bother me at all. Like going from college to the NFL, it's like that part really wasn't an issue for me. He said that learning the playbook was the hardest part. Just learning the intricacies of Kyle Shanahan's playbook was the biggest challenge. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like, he's like, yeah, no, I felt good out there. I felt like it came, super easy, like right away. I was like, all right. He's got a like quiet confidence. And he's a good kid, dude. So and like he really did have moments last year in training camp where I'm like, "Oh, okay. He actually might be able to play." Like he's definitely on one of those developmental tracks where it's going to take him a while probably to like be able to earn that spot. But I mean, if a spot becomes available, maybe he earns it in training camp. But I'll be dropping that interview as soon as I get off here. So right when I get off, I'm gonna post the Tariq Owens interview that I did with him. It's a pretty good one. So check that out when you get a chance. Anthony Belton at right tackle, that could fall for the Niners in mid-round. Grade on him. Dude, I saw someone mock Anthony Belton ahead of Will Campbell today in the first round. I'm like, damn, I'm pretty big on Anthony Belton. I don't know if I'm that high on Anthony Belton. I would say that Belton is a second rounder to me. Like to me, he's earned enough to be a second round player. Maybe early third round pick. But I was like, no, they actually mocked Anthony Belton to the 49ers at 11. That was actually the mock over Will Campbell. I was like, ooh. I like Belton. I don't like Belton that much. So for me, definitely second, third round grade on him. So we'll see how it goes. Oh, update on the boombox poll. Many more votes have come in. 247 votes on the poll. 64% say yes. Keep the boombox walkout. All right. All right. Not bad. Not bad. Joy says, just want the deal done soon so all of the crap takes stop. 100% Joy. And Joy, I know, watches me enough to understand that if you sit me alone with my thoughts long enough, I am going to think about any type of range of outcome imaginable. So one of the reasons why I want the 49ers to get this done is so I don't have to keep thinking about, well, what if that happens? Well, what if this happens? What if this person calls? What if this happens? What if that happens? I'm just like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of my own head, because the more I sit, the more I spin. I just spin on all the different ranges of outcomes that could happen, and I'm like, oh my gosh, bro, throw me some Ritalin, some Adderall, and a big cup of coffee. That way I can just lock in. uh Anyways, but I will say this. This is going to be one of the more eventful off seasons, in my opinion, in recent memory. Which is, I think, saying a lot I agree. Drugs are bad. Okay, I agree. I agree. 100%. Um, but I think this is going to be a eventful off season. Oh boy, and I think are we like less than a week away from legal tampering? Yes, we are. Next Monday is the start of legal tampering. So next Monday we'll start getting the news of how the league will be changing. Like while we were on, we just got word that Sam Darnold won't be franchise tagged. Um, who else? Um, I think it was Javon Holland. Javon Holland, I believe, won't be franchise tagged. Now, as I said, I'm a big Talanoa Hufanga guy. But if you get me Javon Holland, he is really freaking good. And I will never forget my first impression of Javon Holland because it came when I was scouting Brandon Ayuk. And it was hilarious because it was the ASU versus Oregon game when Jaden Daniels was the quarterback um, at ASU, and BA was going crazy. And they were throwing every single cornerback that they had on BA, and no one could do nothing. The only one who could sort of guard Brandon Ayuk was Javon Holland, and they had to take him from safety and put him down onto BA, and that was my first impression of Javon Holland. And I was like, "Oh, this guy's good. Like, he's good." So if you and he's a younger player too, so you give me Javon Holland. Yeah, I'd be pretty hyped on that. That's for sure. For sure, for sure. But anyways, it's gonna be from here, from like I would say today all the way through, like we're on. Like I went on my vacation. Like we're all gas, no break, all the way until mandatory minicamp. So Javon Holland, Will Johnson, Diamador Lenore, Malik Mustafa, Renardo Green. Who needs a D line when that's your secondary? Sheesh. So that's hilarious that you said that, because when I watched Kobe Bryant, I'm like, that's Renardo Green. I was like, that's the same guy. I would say Kobe Bryant has better ball skills. Like he's phenomenal at coming down with the football. But you know, I was a huge Renardo Green guy last offseason. I would say one of the only ones that came across. And then the second I got into Kobe Bryant, I'm like, that's Renardo. 6 foot, 180, but just dogs, absolute dogs. Uh, Super physical, great press man corners. I was like, yeah, that's the same guy. So I would love Kobe Bryant out of Kansas. That would be chef's kiss to pair up. Like I said, do that thing where you go get a 1 year free veteran free agent cornerback. If you're trying to be cost effective, go get a 1 year veteran at quarterback. Go draft Kobe Turner. Kobe Bryant. No, Kobe Bryant. Yes, Kobe Bryant. I tripped myself up there for a second. I was like, wait, is his name Kobe Bryant? I don't remember my reaction. I'd actually have to go back. I'd have to go back and look. The only reaction that I remember was when I thought we were getting Cooper DeJean and found out that it was actually Ricky Pearsall. We went from one white boy to the other one. Just switch sides of the field. I was like, I was like, we got Cooper DeJean. It's like, no, we didn't. We did not get Cooper DeJean. We got someone that I'm completely shocked that we draft. Now, obviously, fast forward, I'm a big fan of Ricky Pearsall. But that was quite the ride. Quite the ride. Shout out to Super Bowl champion Cooper DeJean, former 49er for 35 seconds. It was a great time. It's a great time for sure. But I'm going to get out of here. I feel like I could talk to you guys forever, but we'll save some more for tomorrow. And we'll have plenty to talk about. I do want to focus more on free agency this year or this week with legal tampering starting next week. But we'll get after it. We'll do everything. I got to fit in a mock draft. Well, we got a lot of stuff to do. But I appreciate all you guys for always tapping in, especially during the off season. That's how I know you're a real one. Appreciate everyone. Grab some cookies on your way out, and we'll get after it tomorrow. Appreciate y'all. I'm out. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see you.